My best friend and I, John, he's a fellow priest, we were on a trip together and we are going through this mountain. And he had this idea planned out because he said, we got to make it to this one view, because this one view is this place called Sky Pond in the Rocky Mountains. You got to see it. He's doing research on it. The view is breathtaking. It's beautiful. So my friend was so excited about going on this little trail to see it. But I underestimated how difficult it would be because myself and him, we were not in condition to go through the trail. And it was kind of funny, as we're going through it, we see like little kids passing us by, running us by, moms and dads carrying their kids on their shoulders, on their backs, and him and I are taking breaks every 5 minutes. I remember at a certain point, I'm just like, John, can't we just turn around? This is getting difficult. And he's like, Tom, you got to trust me. It's going to be beautiful. I remember this one part, we saw these teenagers, and they were coming back. And we asked them, oh, so how much further to Sky Pond? Are we almost there? And they started to laugh. No, you're not even close. I'm like, oh, man. Well, how is it from here to there? Is it, compared to what we've done, is it harder or easier? What you did was easy. This is, from now on, it's going to just be, it'll be like this. It'll be harder, and then after it gets harder, it gets even harder, and then it gets even harder, and then it gets hard. But then after the hard part, then comes the scramble. I'm like, oh my gosh. At that time, I turned to my friend John. I'm like, John, let's just turn around. And he's like, no, we really got to do this. It's worth it. And it was really funny because even as we're going, I'm like, did we just pass the scramble? And they're like, no, it's still coming up. It's going to get hard. It's going to get worse before it gets worse, before it gets really bad. Anyways, I think the teenagers were kind of exaggerating a little bit. It was a great trip. It got hard. It got even harder. But when we made it to the end, the view was breathtaking. The view was out of this world. The view made all the troubles that we went through, the whole path, worth it. And we enjoyed the view like it was like we were in heaven. I think the readings this week, kind of when I was praying over them, remind me of that little story, because both the prophet Daniel and Jesus himself is warning us. He says it's going to get hard, and then it might even get even harder. It might feel like it's getting worse before it gets worse. The sun will turn off. The stars will fall down. The moon will stop burning brightly. But then comes the glory. Then the Son of Man will come in his glory. And Daniel says, then you and I will share, will shine like stars in the sky. We will share in the glory that is being revealed. But push through the trials, the tribulations. They will come. Don't worry. But at the end, there will come the glory. And boy, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth all that you've had to go through. I think in our lives, all of us, this is kind of a message for every single one of us. All of us will have to face our own trials, our own tribulations. Those boys could have just said, no, it'll be easy. But that's not really loving. The gospel today, Jesus is real with us. He's authentic with us. It's going to be difficult. But once you get through it, man, is it worth it? Man, is it worth what God has prepared? Man, is it worth the beautiful view that God has prepared after all of that? I think many times in our lives, we face these trials and tribulations. And like me, I faced something I never had to face before. And there's always that temptation to say, I want to go back. I want to go back when things were easier. How many of you say that? Lord, I wish I was back in this part of my life before this. Maybe before whatever X is. Before this happened in my life. Before that, before this. When things were easier. And the question was, were they really easier? Or maybe they look easier to you now because you're stronger. And the fact that you are stronger is precisely because you had to go through wherever that is you had to go through. Maybe we look upon the children here and say, man, back when life was easy, when I was in first grade, second grade, when I was in kindergarten. Well, I remember kindergarten actually was really tough for me. I remember going through having to memorize words, spelling bees. It seems easier now precisely because we've gone through it, because we're stronger now. And if we didn't go through whatever trial and tribulation that was, whatever that before was, we wouldn't be where we are right now. God has prepared a great path for each one of us, a great journey, a great view at the end. St. Daniel, Jesus, all are telling us there's going to be trials and tribulations on the way. But precisely through that, you're going to be stronger. Precisely through that, you're going to enjoy the view of heaven, the beauty, the glory that God has prepared for each one of us. There's this anecdote I was hearing this week about how the process of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. You know the process? Where the caterpillar goes into a cocoon for however long that is. Or the story of a little girl who saw this butterfly trying to get out of the cocoon. And they start to really struggle to get out. Has anyone ever seen that, getting through a cocoon? And this little girl felt so much compassion for this butterfly just struggling to get out of the cocoon that she took a little knife and was cutting the cocoon and say, don't worry, I'll save you, I'll get you out of this mess. Opened the cocoon up, and the butterfly came out. And she was so happy because the butterfly didn't have to go through all that suffering to get out of the cocoon. And afterwards, she saw the butterfly, but the butterfly couldn't fly. And the butterfly couldn't move. It was so weak, it kept falling and stumbling over. And the mom said, what happened? Well, you see, I was cutting out the cocoon so that the butterfly wouldn't have to suffer as it was leaving. And she said, no, you hurt the butterfly. What do you mean? The process of breaking through the cocoon is precisely how the butterfly becomes stronger. And that process that nature has given to the butterfly makes the butterfly have the muscles it needs. That struggle it goes through prepares the butterfly to fly. And because you prevented the butterfly from going through that, now it's weak, now it can't fly. How many of our times in life the same thing is true for us? Whatever trial and tribulation we're going through, maybe precisely through that is what's going to make us fly, make us stronger, make us who we are. And the temptation is to go back, to turn back. The temptation is to take the easy route, to when it was easier before. But maybe it's just, like I said, easier before because we're stronger now. And we're stronger now precisely because of the struggles, the trials and tribulations that we've gone through. This month of November, we've had this great grace of having this exhibition of relics in front of us. And I always look at all the saints, and when I think that I have a difficult day, I just look at St. John Vianney. I'm like, oh my gosh, you had a difficult life as a parish priest. And you look at all the different saints that we have in front of us, and one thing they all have in common is they all went through something difficult. And they all had a choice to make. Jesus appeared to St. Peter. Peter was running away from Rome. And Jesus says, turn back. It's going to get worse before it gets worse. You're going to die. You're going to be crucified as well. But the glory is beautiful. The glory is worth it. There's a holy priest I know that the Lord has given him different gifts, and he was sharing the story about his mother, how his mother in her last days was going through a lot of suffering. I'm going to say more than days, maybe even for months, for years. And he was praying for his mother after she passed. And he had this interior vision of his mom in heaven. And he said to his mom, but Mom, what about all this suffering you had to go through? And his mom kind of responded something like this: suffering. I remember that word, but I don't remember what suffering is. And it was this idea that in heaven, all of that has passed. And the glory that we now share in is given to us. As we have this month of November, we're on a journey, and each one of us has different trials and tribulations we're going through. And maybe it feels like it's going to get worse before it gets worse. And maybe you feel like God is doing something to you, making you stronger. And the temptation is to turn back. The temptation is to go to whatever it was before. But maybe the Lord, precisely through this suffering you're going through, precisely through this trial, is encouraging you, is asking you to share in His glory.